Welcome to the Jacovitz Learning Centers. This is an SAT prep. If you want to click one of these links, you can find this book. We're on Amazon.com. That has more questions. There's one book that's 75 questions, and there's another one with 100. So, right now, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to read over this and to look at it. And then I'm going to come back and read with you. Okay, so already you know the Great Basin is an area that includes California, Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Wyoming, and it extends to the Mexican border. Flooding in this area has caused earthquakes and landsliding. If you're allowed to take notes on the SAT, you want to get into these things. You want to always look at what causes are. I don't know if they allow you to highlight still on the SAT, but if they do, um, why don't you try to highlight some things that are important? And if not, you can always underline. The land sliding causes the sand to drift. Well, that's pretty obvious. Most of you who are reading this are smart enough to understand that. You're also smart enough to understand that sand deposits fall into the ocean and the remaining sediment becomes less stable. Here's where you're going into a contrast. This word therefore. And you know that words like therefore, consequently, those cause contrast. So you want to pay attention to them. And here we go again with therefore, if a major thunderstorm with rain occurs in this area, more landsliding occurs. The thunderstorms occur more frequently when it is hot outside. The thunderstorms are convective. It's one of those words you might want to use as you're going to bring up something that has to do with science. And I'm going to erase it a little bit better for you. The thunderstorms are convective, and their duration is short. Okay, so this may be important. Short, convective, con means something, it means with. So you can figure that out later. But the reason the U.S. Bureau of Land Management, BLM, classifies flooding as a problem is due to the number of people who live in the areas of the Great Basin. Check this word, live. A solution to the flooding may be to relocate the residents in this area. This is easier said than done. Housing costs and rising inflation prevent many residents from leaving permanently. Instead, many residents leave the area during seasons when high flooding is expected. The less affluent or the less ambulant remain in the areas of the convective forces occurring from heat induced winds which occur during flooding. Another solution may be to add bedrock to areas turned to silt during the formation of alluvial fans. If any of you guys speak Spanish, you know alluvia means rain. So you know this has something to do with something that happens with fans and rains. So, and it's not a real fan. It's a fan. It's how it turns out, what it looks like. So those are alluvial fans. The problem is that alluvial fans occur when flooding causes a fan or a shape where dirt erodes and slides away from the sediment. How does an emergency disaster team come into an area where mudslides and fanning causes the dirt to keep moving so that the movement can occur? This question has been attempted, but some of the emergency disasters teams became part of the tragedies. So we need to make a conclusion here that the emergency disaster teams, you can go ahead and write EDT. They tried. They tried to find a way to stop some of the stuff from happening, but Doing so, they became part of the tragedies. And there's another jump you have to be. Maybe they got caught in the flash flooding, and hopefully, they survived. Although if it's a big tragedy, probably not. They probably just drowned. Their car got stuck, and there was nothing they could do. So these are the jumps you want to make. Okay, alluvial fans are not completely disastrous. Sometimes these fans create canyons where dirt and slides away, but a cavernous area is made. Canyons allow animals to fight for survival, to hide. So it allows animals who are fighting for survival to hide. Canyons can create temporary shelter for humans too. Another problem is that some alluvial fans sit on the mouth of a river. Many cars, including emergency disaster vehicles, may move through these fans and hit a depression and then fall into water. After falling or sinking into water, the car becomes submerged and the car nor its travelers can move. This is where the emergency and the danger occurs. So somehow the author is linking this into uh, cars, driving, emergency disaster vehicles, rivers. You got to start thinking how these all connect, because one of the ways that the mouths of a river connect, you can try to gather, is if you were driving and all of a sudden there's a fall, there's land, and then dirt slides away, and then you end up in that flood, which some of us have seen on TV. It gets to be a real problem. So you got to connect these words: mouth of a river, cars, emergency disaster vehicles, fall into water. That's another connection, and where the danger occurs. So you've got to be able to make those connections in order to be able to answer the questions. So your mind has to think very quickly. Okay, at least the BLM, and this was explained before, Bureau of Land Management, has labeled areas where heavy flooding and alluvial fanning is likely to occur. The Sierra Madre mountain ranges are not the best places for residential use, yet Sierra Madre homes range from $600,000 to over $3 million. The architects, construction developers, and realtors attest that no flooding extensive enough to cause damages has occurred in the last 2 decades. Very important. Let's take a click here. Furthermore, earthquakes are more of concern than flooding. People who do not understand, sorry about that, people who do not understand how to maneuver themselves during flooding may get caught in flash floods or in convective winds that lead to flooding. Tourists and visitors and family members have been less familiar with flooding and flooding's aftermath. The aftermath included overconfidence. People who think they can drive after some erosion occurs can think that they know how to maneuver through a storm. Let's get this word here: overconfidence, flooding's aftermath. And I'm going to take off some of this red so you can see it better. Okay, however, these people find themselves sliding on a road, running into an embankment, and rearing into a silt that takes their vehicles into flooding waters. For those of you who did 10th grade science, you know what a silt is, and sand kind of just shifts through it. A car's doors cannot open due to sand pulling the car into a concave. The inability to open the doors causes asphyxiation and drowning. These huge storms, surges, can occur within 15 minutes or less. A quick ride to the grocery store during flash flood season can turn deadly, although most times the National Weather Service releases flood warnings. So flooding can be detrimental. We knew this, but let's just mark this here. And fatal. Flooding can be detrimental and fatal. Methods for recording duration of flooding does not stop tragedies. Prevention can only occur if there is awareness. Awareness occurs through preventive measures. The BML has done its job. The National Weather Service has given flood warnings. Yet the number of people killed during flooding has been over 200 during a flash flood. Flash floods, by definition, is a severe and quick flood which lasts less than an hour. Landsliding cannot be prevented. So why are we warning people about flooding? Think about this, and I'm going to let you take a look at this, and you're going to think before we go on to the questions. Be back in a second. Okay, so now I'm back. So you took a look at this. This ends with a question. Quick argument, not one of the hardest to read. Number one, let's go right into the SAT reading test practice questions. Number one, which is true about alluvial fans, these fans cause too much flooding. Let's think about this answer. Is it that the fans cause too much flooding? Or is it that fans are caused by the flooding? This is opposite. Opposite, scratch it out. Okay. Uh, Other thing is these fans lie on the mouths of rivers. That is a possibility. That was one of them, so let's keep it. These fans are preventable according to the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM. Exactly opposite. Put OPPS here. These fans are the result of too much flooding. Your answer is D. B and D are correct, but the author asks you which is true about the formation of the fans, and this is the result. This is true. Let me tell you what happens here in question B. When the water flies out, you have to make this connection. It's not directly stated. It says sometimes they lie on the mouth of rivers. So that's not there. And it might be true. Let me put this in B. Maybe. But according to this article, that's not really what happened. So your answer is not true there. Okay, number two, and please, before I move on to two, let me be very cautious that this B was put here as a distractor to throw you into question D. So that's why, remember I said check it maybe, but you need to go back and find how not related to the formation. They were already there. And if it is related to the formation, article did not say so. So you can't choose it. If your earth science teacher taught you this, your biology, your chemistry teacher, whoever taught you this, the article says something different, go with the article. Okay? So we're done with this. Number two, what does the author consider overconfidence? Now, he stated this, but look, there are two places where he put overconfidence. And what he did was he said over here they can become overconfident, but then he explained it in the second one. So now, are tourists the people who do not understand flooding, drive after a flood? If tourists are there and they don't understand, they're not the ones with the overconfidence. So this is an opposite. Okay, because they're just in the area like, hey, I'm hanging out, didn't know you had this problem, didn't know it was this bad. In this region, I knew you had this problem in Kansas, I knew you had this problem in Tennessee, Oklahoma, but didn't know it was there. Okay, B is tourists and visitors of relatives who drive during a flood. Okay, well this was kind of linked to they don't know. These are kind of linked. So we might want to scratch this one out. Overconfidence kind of means that they understand the area, but they want to do something anyway. People who think they can drive after a flood ended might be C. Persons who believe that flash flooding does not occur in this area. If you live in an area long enough, you know that flash flooding occurs. So your answer is C. So question one is D. Sorry about that. we're kind of having fun here. And question two is C. So we have one more slide, and then we're going to move on. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at Jacovitz Learning. You can look us up. We're on Google. You can send us an email through that, or you can go jacovitzlearning@gmail.com. So, to question 6. Here's the link you can click on. I think you click on it from here. You can go straight to Amazon and get it. Okay. The author's conclusion uses which of the following? Let's go over question A, parallel reasoning. You know what parallel bars are. It has to be this. And parallel means that you were bringing up one thought that coincides with another. So, like if you were bringing up causes of hurricanes to causes of earthquakes, those are parallels because you're listing all causes. Circular means just what it said. You're going around a circle. Doesn't stop. Logical, if you guys did this kind of stuff, if then statements. If this happened, then this would be the consequence. And we can read through this. And analogical reasoning is more like, let's look at what happened in 1987 when it concerns flooding. Let's look at what happened when this happened. Let's do this and see if we can compare this with this. That's what analogic means. So when we get ready to get into something, we're here. Let's read this article. Flooding can be detrimental and fatal. Methods for recording duration of flooding does not stop tragedies. Prevention can occur if there is awareness. Awareness occurs through preventive measures. The BLM has done its job. The National Weather Service has done its job. Has given flash warnings, yet the number of people killed during flooding has been over 200 during a flash flood. Flash floods, by definition, is a severe and quick flood which lasts at less than an hour. Landsliding cannot be prevented. Why are we warning people about flooding? There is something illogical about this, but since it ends with a question mark and you don't have a choice of illogical, that's not there. Landsliding cannot be prevented. We know that. But guess what? We're trying to tell people about flash flooding. We're trying to explain something that happens, also called a phenomenon, and why the phenomenon exists, and trying to get into it. So, really, you're not really using logical reasoning because it's illogical. So you can scratch this. Let me get my pen. You can scratch that. Okay. Also, you're not. Um, You're not comparing. You only have one instance here over the last 200 years, but they don't really go into it. They just say what happened. It happened a time ago, so that's not it. And you're only talking about flooding and flash flooding, and you're not looking at causes. You're just the author is just giving specific things that happen. Flooding, this is what happened. This is blah blah blah. This is what happened. Preventive measures. Yet the number of people killed during flooding has been over 200. This and that, and it only talks about like what happened with flash flooding and deaths, as opposed to like deaths of deaths of regular flooding. So that's not parallel. This question here is the end all. Why are we warning people about flooding? Because it tries to make an illogical jump that landsliding cannot be prevented. So why are we talking about it? Since flooding can be detrimental and fatal, why are we warning people about flooding? Well, heck, if it's fatal, we have to warn. We have to try to do something. But it's coming back here and trying to throw you a curveball and say if landsliding occurs, why are we talking about it? So it's circular. It's taking you back to a question, so you go back and say, why did I go through all this to learn this to try to make this happen? And the SAT and a lot of these other tests, LSAT, this and that, they do things like that too. That's what happens. Okay, let's go to question number 4. Why does the author use the Great Basin area as an example of residential areas of concern? The Great Basin area has more earthquakes than any other area in the USA, or in the United States. It says US, not USA. So US. Did it really say that? Or did it just say the Great Basin area is an area of concern? Did it ever get into it has more than any other area? I don't think so. So it's not A. The Great Basin area is known as a hiking area, and many people lose their lives hiking during floods. Was hiking brought up in this article? By the way, people have lost their lives hiking during flooding, but the article didn't bring it up. Not in an article, so you scratch it out, even if you knew it. The Great Basin area is a flooded area, and flooding cannot be stopped. Okay, the Great Basin area is a flooded area, and flooding can't be stopped. Well, I don't like this word though, but we're keeping it as a possibility so that we don't. We're keeping it as a possibility so that we hopefully can find a better answer. The Great Basin area has construction developers who want to build in this area, and they prevent information about flooding. Did the article say this part? I don't know if they prevent it. Maybe they do, but the article didn't say, so this is out. There is not a better answer. I don't like this. Flooding cannot be stopped. They're trying to, but unfortunately, that's the answer. So other choices are worse. 3 is B, 4 is C. Like us, folk. Emails on the first slide.